All right, I'm gonna try to make a video here for Oscar. This is his motor. We have the new assembly here and the stand, just fitting everything together. We have the new 4340 crank and rods. Took the cast crank out. We went with a little more stroke on this one. So that's what's going on with this motor. We got it pretty much pre-assembled. Everything clears. Get the camera here and not try to shake you to death. But here's our assembly. Got our rods in here, got our crank. These are some temporary bearings. I bought all this stuff and had it laid out and picked it up. And they gave me some Coleman Schmidt bearings. These are aluminum, so I won't be using those. And we'll use those in a stock motor, and I'll buy another set of silver lines for this one. But we did our pre-assembly to make sure everything clears. Everything rotates nice. I'll have to set the camera down to do that. I have one little spot here that I'm going to clearance on the cam bearing. Put another camshaft in it, new lifters, machine the lifter bosses, which after I rotate it, I'll take that out and show you what we did there. The case was already clearance, so that worked out really nice, and everything looks really good. We got some parts in the mail. We have a Megaspark distributor from CB Performance. We're probably gonna have to get some spark plug wires for this because they have a different type of connector on the cap. It's a male instead of a female connection. Got the flamethrower distributor. Got an MST alternator stand. Got our scat push rod tubes. Got a JC billet distributor clamp and a CB clamp. We'll figure out which one of those we're going to use. Of course, we got the Manton push rods cut to length. We got some spacers here. I got an oil adjuster for the oil relief valve. You might not use that. I might just put a bigger pump in it. It's got a 26 millimeter pump. And it has oil cooler all the way at the front of the car, so it's pumping a lot of oil and probably could use a little more volume on the oil pump. We have our new forged flywheel, and of course we got our scat rods there. We replaced the rods. Came in with a cast assembly, flywheel, rods. Had a set of Unitech rods, which are you know, they might be fine. I've never used them before, but we're going to try to make a little more power, and we don't want to have any wear issues or any reliability issues. So we upgraded the crankshaft, upgraded the rods, upgraded the flywheel to a forged flywheel. So this is a much better assembly now. Plus we got a really nice motor. I mean, this is a brand new aluminum case, or not aluminum case, but a mag case, which is really nice. You don't gain the extra weight. And for this stroke and combination, it's a real good setup. It's a little more expensive than an aluminum case, but the old-time Volkswagen guys just sort of prefer these a little more than the aluminum cases. I do anyway. It's personal preference. We got the rod information a lot of guys don't get when they buy the imitation rods. This gives you all the bolt sizes here, so if you guys want to freeze that, keep it, print it, whatever. I know some of you guys have had trouble getting this information, but it gives you the manufacturer bolt, scat bolt, ARP bolt, and it gives you the torque and the stretch there. I know a couple of my buddies were looking for that information when they bought a repop rod of these, and it didn't come with any information, and when they called, they got the runaround. That's why I like scat stuff. At least you get the proper information so you can, you know, stretch the bolt, make sure it's not gonna unclamp from the rod. So we got all our information there. We got the ARP lube with the rods. I checked the bore on the rods, and they're really nice. No run out on them at all. So the machine work was really nice. We got our stretch gauge laid out. I didn't stretch the bolts for the first assembly because I'm just trying to see if everything fits. And I tend to try to stretch the bolts on the final assembly so, you know, they're nice and fresh. So I'll go ahead and set this down. Well, let me show you the heads first next, I guess. I don't have to move around too much anymore, but I have the head over here on the angle plate. And we're set up in the drill press. And I use this to check the travel on the spring, see if we got any coil bind or anything like that, any issues. These are single springs, but they're pretty healthy single springs. You know, we could go to a double spring. It would probably, you know, be a little better if you're going to run more high RPM, if you want to, you know, buzz the motor a little bit. But if you're going to be conservative and not beat on it, the single spring would probably be a better combination for just everyday driving and going down the road. If you're not going to, you know, drag race the car or, you know, have extended RPMs or beat on it a lot. They tend to be easier on the cam followers and the cam. And when you add spring pressure, you know, you always add wear. So these heads have plenty of travel. The camshaft that was in there was right at 400 and I want to say 80, somewhere in there. On the lift with the 1.25 rockers, it was a 110. I think it was like 470 if I did the math right. But anyway, we're set up at 0 there, and we'll go around. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and even at 500, we're not coil bound. So, you know, you have plenty of travel. The springs have nice pressure. I did notice something when I took the heads apart. This head hasn't come apart, obviously. I'm just over here to check the travel. But this head over here, however, over on the head vents, I took one valve out of it, and they're really sticky. So I don't like the aluminum retainers, you know. I think they're sort of maybe moving a little bit on the keepers. We could probably upgrade those to some titanium, some CB. They're pretty reasonable. They're not a lot of money. But you can see this chamber here was completely black, and the seat is starting to burn. You can see the valve here also has a lot of carbon buildup on it. So we'll go ahead and hit these, freshen up the face on them, and then we'll put a 45 on the head. Make sure we got good seal, because that's a lot of the performance is the valve job. I did notice some wear. I don't know if it'll pick up in the camera. You can see the wear on the stem right in this area where it's real shiny. So that's sort of unusual. I didn't mic them yet, but it does have some excessive wear for the mileage. The motor has about 2,000, 2,200 miles on it. So this is something we might want to consider. You know, I don't know if this is heading towards failure. This motor did have one thing that I tell people not to do. Well, it's just in my opinion now. There's no right or wrong way. But anyway, whoever assembled these heads put grease on the guides. And a lot of times what that does is it doesn't let oil get into the guide. And the grease gets so baked onto the stem that it just blocks the lubricant from getting to the guide. And we had a little bit of that on this. This is why we had this excessive wear like this, I do believe. But I'll know more when I get the rest of the head to get apart today. And like I said, I'll do a little bowl work in here. These are pretty good. We'll just do the turn. It's a little rough right there. And clean up the seats, reface the valves, and we'll use these heads again. The only question would be double springs or single springs, and the retainers. These are the aluminum retainers, I do believe. But we'll check them out. The retainer doesn't look like it's showing any sign of wear, but they were stuck on the spring, so that's usually a sign of valve float. When I drove the car, I didn't see any of that, you know. So we'll check everything out, get everything measured up, make sure the install type's right and all that, and the heads should be fine. They're really nice heads, so for the power we want to make, you know. But anyway, that's where we're at. That's what's going on with this one. And let me go ahead and put the camera down here. We'll rotate this baby. There you go. It's real sweet. Turns over really nice. And everything clears. You got plenty of room in here. These rods are machined on the back side for the stroker. They work really well. This is a 5-inch, 390, I think, almost like 5'4". So we should be able to set our barrel space the way we want it and make everything work really nice. I'm gonna probably keep the compression probably around 8.5 to 1. I don't like to go too much lower than that, so that should be, you know, decent. Maybe even 9 to 1. I don't know. We'll see how everything works out and where we're at with without doing any machine work. I have to get the heads all cleaned up, then we'll CC the combustion chambers and see what we have for combustion chamber volume, and then we'll figure our cylinder volume out, and we'll check our compression ratio and get all that sorted out. The piston cylinders look not too bad. We'll get those cleaned up. You know, they're just mainly carbon, so we'll get everything cleaned up there, inspect the rings. Like I said, some of this coating's wearing off, but that's not uncommon. It's not really you know, quality coating like some of the other manufacturers. The coating's a little better, but depending on where you get that coating, you know, sometimes it's just to look good in the box, you know. But that looks to me more like the engine's set for a little while and it's stuck to the cylinder, you know. That's usually what that looks like. So these are A&A piston cylinders. I had somebody, a viewer, ask me, you know, do I prefer A&A or SEMAs, or I don't even know they make SEMAs anymore, but they'd be Malls now. And I sort of tend to like the Malls. I mean, I use them on my personal builds. They're a little expensive, you know. And the difference is, if you look at this ring pack here, you'll see the size of the rings are fairly large. And the larger this ring is, the width of the ring, when you combine all these together, the more heat they make, and that's a friction deal. So what Mahle does is they go to a much thinner ring pack, and it reduces the friction in the cylinder. So that's why I sort of like these. You know, you sort of, you know, get what you pay for, I guess. And A&A wasn't around when I was a kid, so I mean, I have used quite a few of them, and they work, you know, very nice. Never had an issue with them. But that's the difference. These aren't truly forged either. I think they're more of a hyper-eutectic deal, where the Mahles is true forged piston. So if you're going all out performance, you definitely want to go with the Mahle, you know, or get a piston designed like a J&E or a Wiseco even, where you can put a little valve relief in it and, you know, go wild with the camshaft. But for street stuff, this is fine. And it makes, you know, building the motor affordable for everybody. So here's our camshaft that came out of the motor. This is the 110. And a couple of these lifters have a little bit of wear on them also. You can see they're getting a little dished. And it wasn't machined under the lifter boss. So sometimes that'll make the lifter get tight against the lobe of the cam. This motor only has 2,000 miles on it, so you have to imagine what it would look like in, you know, 10,000. That one there's starting to get a little wipe in the center of it, if you see it right there. But for the most part, they look pretty decent. There's another one just in the center. They all look like they were turning though. So, there you go. If you guys are building one of these motors and you're worried about the camshaft, another thing you can do up by the push rod area is put a little dot of paint on each push rod and make sure they're turning. Each time you take the valve cover off, you don't want to see it in the same location. And when they do stop turning, that's a good indication that the cam is going flat and the lifter's not rotating in the bore anymore. So that's what's going on with this. I'm not going to babble on. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down and get started on these cylinder heads today. Get them cleaned up, get the piston cylinders cleaned up. I still have more parts to wash. And pop this out, the camshaft. And we'll take a look at the lifter bores. Cut those down. Get these things are really thin. These are scat lifters. I did the notch in the oil hole, little trick there that I do. So we machine these down and clean them all up so we have the proper clearance between the lobe and the lifter. You want to make sure you have some space when you put the camshaft in there. And what I mean by space is I'll drop this back in here. I'm just going to drop it in the right spot because I don't know where when the lobe is all the way down, you want to have space between the lifter and the lobe. This area right in here, this measurement. And you want to make sure you have at least 80 to 100 there. And they were really tight when it came in. Normally if you have an aftermarket cam, you have to look at that and cut it down. A lot of times depending on the lifter you use, I'll show you the difference here. This is a stock lifter basically. So the lifter is smaller. The base circle of it is smaller. And then this part here is wider. These are cut down when you go to a scat lifter and the radius for the hole. So it sits further down in the hole. This is a stock lifter that somebody just popped in there. And yeah, so that's, little stuff. All the little stuff is the more details you can do, the better off that you'll be. You only get one time to make sure everything's right before you put the motor together. The other thing that I noticed, don't know, I'm not going to check this, but I thought this was sort of excessive. This is the cam gear that was on the 110. This is just a gear out of the shelf. I didn't disassemble the crank that came in yet, but it seems to have a lot of backlash there. That could make some noise. So I'll check that out, and we might pop a new gear on there and see what we have, and see if that's any sweeter. So you want to get that as nice as you can get it without pitching the cam out when you rotate the motor. It should rotate with the crank with the other case half off. If it's too tight, it'll generally pitch the cam out of the journals. And if it's too loose, you generally get this. Back in the old days, you could get plus one, plus 2 gears. And that shows up when you line bore the case, not when it's a brand new case and brand new parts. So we'll have to measure that and call the gear suspect for right now. So could be a quality issue. I don't know what the deal is. It is a scat gear though, so that's why I went ahead and popped it on there. But we'll measure that. I'll open one out of the package and put it on there and see if it's any nicer. Cam gear's not really a lot of money. You have to listen to that all the time, and that's the kind of noise that drives me crazy. Those little rattles. If you get everything nice and tight in these things, they're pretty sweet. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this off. Thanks for stopping by, Oscar. Thanks for your patience, and we need to talk. You need to call me on the phone. Get together this weekend, have a little conversation, and we'll go over everything. And I'll keep making these videos for you. And pretty soon we'll be driving this puppy. So I'm gonna take the carburetors apart, obviously, because we had a little bit of a issue with the carbon. So these are brand new. They're Solex. Don't know where you got them. We'll check the jets and all that good stuff, and see where we're at. Might have to order some jets. Might have to shrink the Venturis down a little bit, but we'll figure it out, buddy. So that's what's going on with that. And until the next time, you guys take it easy. Thanks for stopping by. If you wouldn't mind, hit that subscribe button. And yeah, go out there and push that record button and make some Volkswagen videos.